he is going to be the host, and if he doesn't recognize somebody, he won't let him in. We also did some other setting changes too.
And the meeting is now it's streaming live on YouTube, so people can watch it, but not participate.
It will be as soon as Jim hits the right buttons.
Excellent.
No, Beth, you need to go inside. No viewing the meeting from outside.
Anne's enjoying it too.
Yeah.
Well, I was up. We have an office in the attic, and I couldn't do it. I was getting claustrophobic.
And coffee cups will be checked later to make sure it's not something other than coffee.
I see.
Well,
Dr.
it's
Dahl.
almost 7.
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Okay, I only have one person that's named owner, so I'm not going to let that person in.
Okay. Well, we're not quite at 7 o'clock yet, so oops.
Good evening to everybody.
Good evening, Chris.
Evening, Dr. Dahl.
Jim, have you streamed it live to YouTube yet? The YouTube channel?
Yes, it should be available now.
Okay, good. Thank you. We're just waiting for the clock right now to say 7 o'clock so we can start.
I just checked the YouTube link and it doesn't work so far. Not from the school district homepage.
Yeah, I see that. I'm trying to work on that right now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 7 p.m. So I'm calling to order the Upper Adams School District School Board meeting of 16th of June 2020. Could you please recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and that'll be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the
flag of the United States of America,
to
the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God,
liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Candy, could we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Kraus,
Here.
Mr. Ebert,
Here.
Mr. Fee,
Here.
Mrs. Janzik,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Lady,
Here.
Mr. Ponce, Mr. Ratowski,
Present.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. School report, student report, there's no report in our agenda, so I will assume since school is out of session, there is none. No one has asked to speak to the board, so there's no public comment, and I have no correspondence to share. So we'll go to item number 8, reports. And the legislative report, there is no report for June from Dr. Fee. So we're down to the FRN report with Mrs. Janzik.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am just going to review a few topics that are on my report. And if you'd like to learn more information, of course, you can go online and get it in full. But the Department of Education announced a discretionary grant of creation of innovative learning opportunities. That's a lot of wording for 2 specific funding that's now available. Education stabilization funding is what they're calling it, under 2 categories. One happens to be Rethink K-12 School Models Grant. And it's intended to create new and innovative ways for K-12 students to learn during this coronavirus crisis, namely through virtual learning. So I don't know if Mr. Albin has found out about any of these, but it's worth considering. Also, reimagining workforce preparation grant is what it's called. And this is also encouraging innovative ways and pathways towards entrepreneurship. I did put down for you where Pennsylvania fell according to this national report. Interestingly, they're bringing us in at 15.53% of 5 to 17-year-olds in poverty, and also the percentage of students in rural local educational agencies is 15.58. So interesting where we fall in the whole lineup of quote unquote need. And also I would just like to highlight 2 more. The Every Student Succeeds Act, apparently that has allocated funding for 50 school districts to combine different funding sources, namely to target low-income families, English learners, and educationally disadvantaged. I mention it because apparently very few have ever applied for it, and it's still, even as of 2015, available. So again, I don't know how much we would qualify for that, something to look into. And then there are a couple other ones here, but the other more noteworthy one had to do with special education funding. And that's always has a special interest for all of us. And I don't know if it's something that we could take advantage of. Again, every little bit helps, but it's addressing special education and early intervention. So again, things to be thinking about, maybe on our radar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Janzik. Any questions or comments for Mrs. Janzik on the FRN report? Hearing none, we'll go on to the LIU report. Dr. Dull.
Just a couple things. The special education budget for 2020-2021 was adopted. And there were a number of job description revisions that were taking place over the last month. And the next meeting is going to be held on Tuesday, June the 30th. And it looks like that's still going to be held virtually at the IU at 7 p.m. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Dr. Dull? Hearing none, we'll go on to federal programs with Dr. Corwell and Mr. Albin.
Yes, good evening. For federal programs titles 1, 2, and 4 this evening, We got the preliminary funding for the federal programs for the upcoming year, and we will be completing that consolidated application this month with the hopes of submitting it by the end of the month. Title III just came through, so I know Dr. Corwell is going to be working on that. And again, we hope to have that submitted here by the end of the month for next year. The other piece of information in my report is that the dioceses are currently in disagreement with the funding that is being provided to them in regards to the CARES funding that we received, which is under Title I programming, as well as our regular allotment that we have for St. Francis for Title I. So they have issued a complaint to, an official complaint to the Department of Education, and we'll see where that goes. However, we did get approval for the CARES Act, even with the disagreement in place. So that was a positive, and I'm hopeful that the Title I process with the consolidated application will be the same.
Thank you. Anything from Dr. Corwell?
The only thing that I'd like to add is that Title III money came in a little after the other titles. It did come in though, and I'm happy to report that it's a level funding. We haven't lost anything this year. So that's good news.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments for either Mr. Albin or Dr. Corwell?
Mr. Albin, I was just curious, when do you see that money coming through, and how does that play out with the decision based on the diocese complaint?
The consolidated application will be approved at when we send it up. It's typically approved by the fall. However, we can start expending funds after we submit it. That's all. That's how they have their practice has been in the past. And I might have to defer here to Mrs. Hobbs as exactly when that money comes in and how she receives it. However, they give us the updated numbers in February from my end, and we update the consolidated application at that point and finalize all the numbers. Again, Mrs. Hobbs, I don't know if you want to chime in exactly when that money gets to the district and how you process that.
Yes, we do start receiving the funds probably as early as September. That does get dispersed, and then quarterly we do have to submit back to the state the amount that we have expensed, so that way we can start reconciling throughout the year. The first reconciliation report is due it's due in January for anything that we have spent up until December 31st.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any chance that we could get this money and then have to return some of it if the decision goes in favor of the diocese?
I don't think we've ever been in this position before, so I guess anything is possible. The fact that they're releasing funds now, even though they're aware of the complaint, I guess remains to be seen. I don't know if there's been a situation quite like this before.
Yeah, I suppose the other question too is what's the potential impact? Is it likely that will just be 1,000 or a couple thousand, or are we talking tens of thousands?
No, I would say it's probably, if anything, a couple thousand. And keep in mind, this is impacting every single school district in the entire state.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
not just Upper Adams. This is a state complaint, and they are in disagreement, not with us, but with PDE.
I did reach out to our senator, US senator, and they are aware of the situation. I think they're still trying to get clarity on it as well. I have not heard back anything. That contact was made a little over a week ago.
All right, thank you. Anything else for these two reports? All right, we'll move on to Cumberland Perry and the Fund Advisory, Mrs. Kraus.
Have no report for either one of those tonight.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Now we'll go to administrator reports, please. Any questions for the administrators on their reports? Well, I just have one question for Mr. Albin, and I know you've gone through this before, but could you please refresh me on flexible instruction day?
Yes. Flexible instructional day is the application that we filed to be able to have the flexibility to utilize snow days as remote learning days. So instead
Okay.
of having to make up a snow day, the students would stay home and work on work that we have prepared for them in lieu of, burning a snow day.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Anything else for the administrators?
I have a question for Mr. Van Dyke. If he could review for us what the MacOS Catalina upgrade is about. I know you said you had about 600 you've finished so far, but the upgrade again, could you explain that for us?
Sure, that's just the latest operating system that's available from Apple, and we are using our mobile device management system to facilitate allowing the end users, because typically you should be an administrator to install that, but with our Jamf MDM, they're able to complete that on their own successfully about 90-95% of the time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anything else for the administrators? Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Dahl.
There are a number of items in my report that we'll speak to throughout the evening tonight. I do want to share that there is a phased school reopening health and safety plan template that PDE released on Friday, June the 5th. And in order for us to offer an extended school year, which we would like to do for our special education students in July, since our board meeting doesn't happen until the end of July, we are required to have this plan approved and in place prior to us starting any kind of extended school year. So we'll talk a little bit about the plan a little bit later tonight, but I do want to mention that we had planned to hold our administrative symposium, and we did that last week on the 9th, 10th, and 11th, and basically our focus was strictly on that plan. So we have started to pull it together with the information that we have right now. We don't have all the answers, and we think that we will continue to obtain information over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And we will continue to populate this plan and bring it back to you and have it board approved again as we update the plan. The Arntsville construction project is moving along pretty quickly. We recently had a meeting to square away the Full and Conewago Street solution. And I just received some minutes from that meeting this evening. I haven't had a chance to read through them yet, but they did provide some minutes for everything that had taken place. I will share that with the board a little bit later. As you can see through Guild Tunney's weekly reports, it's really making progress very quickly. We do have to finalize the furniture PO. The board already approved not to exceed $310,000 for furniture, and that's for the entire building. And I think Mrs. Buckley has been working diligently to get that number, and we do have it below 310. That's on our board agenda to approve tonight, so we can place that order ASAP. And obviously we have the budget that will be approved tonight as well. And those are the 3 major items. I did include the agenda from the meeting that we had at Arntsville. That's included in the report. And there was also an informational piece that came from AASA that outlined what it would cost to reopen a school. AASA is a national organization for administrators, and it was just interesting to see what price tag they put on reopening schools and some of the costs associated with that. That's my report.
Now that I'm unmuted, thank you for your report. Any questions or comments for Dr. Dahl? several of the issues he addressed, we will talk in more detail as the meeting goes on. So hearing no comments, let me see if I can get myself back to the agenda. So we'll move into the treasurer's report. Mrs. Kraus.
Okay, first item A, move to approve the financial report ending May 31st, 2020, and the condensed board summary report for May 2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion before the board to approve the May combined treasurer's report as well as the May condensed board summary report. And it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lady.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, item B, move to approve the food service fund statement of operations ending May 31st, 2020.
Second.
I have a motion before the board to approve the May food service fund report, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mr. Fee.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Moving on, move to approve items 9C, D, and E, student activity fund ending May 31st, 2020, Biglerville High School principal's account ending May 31st, 2020, and the Biglerville High School Tech Agency account ending 5/31/2020.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion before the board to approve the reports contained in your agenda on items 9C, D, and E, and they have been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Fee.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Next item is the consent agenda item. Before we have a motion on that, does anyone have anything contained in the consent agenda that they would like to pull out and discuss and vote on separately? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion before the board to approve the consent agenda as written, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, and this consent agenda does include some contract type items with money involved, so I'll need a roll call, please.
Mr. Wilson, this is Candy. Could I please have who second that motion, please?
Ron Ebert.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call will be Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Ratowski.
James, you still there?
I affirmed my vote with a yes with the mute button on, and I'm now voting yes with the mute button on.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right. Moving on to item 11 on the agenda, the committee reports, finance. Mrs. Kraus.
Okay, item number 1 is an update on House Bill 2240 and Senate Bill 1125.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Kraus. Just wanted to give an update from the last presentation I made regarding House Bill 2240 and Senate Bill 1125. House Bill 2240 was the bill that mandated the schools to extend the discount period on the tax bills and to waive the penalty. And that has not moved, so I think that has pretty well gone away, and I don't think we will see any future movement on that. Senate Bill 1125 gives the school boards the authority to pass a resolution to extend the discount period and to waive the penalty. And just keep in mind, both of these bills have been talked about since April, and we haven't seen any movement. Once again, this Senate Bill 1125 might come up for a vote next week. We're not sure. However, after tonight, once the budget is approved, we do need to send our information to the county regarding the millage, and so they can get our tax bills printed. So if the board would decide that they would want to pass a resolution to extend the discount period or to waive the penalty, there are some things that the board would need to do, and it could present some challenges, and I just want to present them to you as well. You would have to have a special board meeting after tonight and to sign that resolution. And once again, this is only if the Senate would approve the bill. So we would need a special board meeting. And remember, the tax bills would already be mailed out. So then we would have to find a way to communicate that to all our taxpayers. So would that mean additional mailing to our taxpayers, which could cause some confusion there and could be costly to the district to do? We could send a robocall out to those that we have in our system, but once again, we're only going to capture those students that have parents and guardians within our district, but all of them may not be homeowners as well. So just wanted to give you an update, let you know there hasn't been any movement from Harrisburg side. Once again, this has been talked about since April. And if this goes forward and the board would decide to move forward, we do have some challenges that I just wanted to present as well.
The Senate Bill 1125, which has not been voted on yet, has that already gone through the House? Do you know?
I'm not sure on that one.
Right. So it appears that it probably has not, which means that even if they vote on it, it still has to go through the House, and then it has to be, assuming that it's not changed, it would then have to go to the governor.
Right.
I recommend to the board that, especially based on the fact that we have a zero tax increase, which we will discuss here in a moment, that if the legislature hasn't mandated the extension of the discount period, that we should also not mandate it. Discussion? No discussion. Okay. Thank you for the update, Shelley.
Sure.
Mrs. Kraus?
Okay, item 2, move to approve resolution number 2020-06161 of the Upper Adams School District establishing the tax rates and approving the budget for the school year beginning July 1, 2020, with a tax rate of 15.1367, a 0% tax increase. fiscal year 21 revenue of $29,524,023 and expenses of $30,160,860.
Second,
There's a motion before the board to approve resolution 2020-0616.1. This is item 11A2 in your agenda, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Ratowski,
Aye.
Mr. Ebert,
yes,
Mr. Fee,
aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 3, move to approve the homestead and farmstead exclusion resolution number 2020-0616.2 for the 2020-21 fiscal year as per the attached resolution.
Second.
We have a motion before the board to approve the homestead farmstead exclusion resolution number 2020-0616.2. This is item 11A3 in your agenda, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? I have a question for Mrs. Hobbs, and that is, have the funds been identified by the state yet? And if not, how do we know what the exclusion will be?
Yes, the funds have been identified by the state. And
Well,
anything that
that
was
answers-
talked about before was rectified.
Okay, so that answers the question. The money, they have identified the money, so we're on solid ground here.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? I'm hearing none. I need another roll call, please.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mr. Ebert,
yes,
Mrs. Janzik.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 4, move to approve classified staff increases that include a cost of living of 1.6% and evaluation for the 2020-21 school year. The increase covers 43 employees with an increased cost of $45,475.10, or a 3.87% increase over the 2019-20 school year.
Second,
We have a motion before the board to approve the classified staff pay increase. This is item 11A4 on the agenda, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? I would just ask Mrs. Hobbs, this is baked into the budget that we're about to approve, is it not?
That is correct. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Ebert,
yes,
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 5, move to approve the Act 93 administrator increases that include cost of living of 1.6% and evaluations for the 2020-21 school year as per the Act 93 agreement. The increases cover 10 administrators with an increased cost of $39,961.73, or a 4% increase over the 2019-20 school year.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to recommend approval of the Act 93 administrator pay increases. This is item 11A5 on your agendas, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Same question as last time, Mrs. Hobbs. Please verify to us that this is baked into the budget that we're about to approve.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Witowski,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mr. Everett.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 6, move to approve a letter of agreement between Upper Adams School District and True North Wellness Services for outpatient therapy services effective August 1, 2020 to August 1, 2021 at no cost to the district as services are billed to Child's Insurance as per the attached agreement.
Second.
Second.
Motion before the board to approve the letter of agreement between Upper Adams School District and True North Wellness Services items. This is item 11A6 in your agenda. And it's been seconded. Any discussion? I don't even know who to ask this question to, but this is a standard issue each year, isn't it?
Yes, that would be me, Mr. Wilson.
Okay.
It is something that we've done for the last 3 years. We've had this,
Okay.
and yes, this is just getting it approved for this coming school year.
Right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, I think since there's no obligation on the district finances here, we can have a voice vote. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7, move to approve Navigate 360 order form Q-07648 for the license for emergency preparedness for 3 buildings at a cost of $3,000 and the elementary intermediate remapping for Upper Adams Intermediate School at a cost of $2,000 as per the attached quote. And this contract will be paid for by Title IV funds.
Second.
We have a motion before the board to approve the Navigate 360 order form, which includes the license as well as the remapping of the new intermediate school. This is item 11A7 on your agenda. Any discussion? I would only ask Dr. Dull, at some time in the future, if we ever have a board or a committee meeting when we're not jam-packed with other related issues, if you could prepare a short report to us or have somebody report to us on how the staff is enjoying using or not enjoying using Navigate 360.
Yeah, we can show you. It's more of an administrative component, and we also share. It's required that we have our emergency plan on record at the Adams County Emergency Center, so they have access to our plan. The nice thing about this is if we make updates to the plan during the summer, which we always do, those are automatic. So we don't have to print a full copy of it and then send it. Yeah, so we can show you exactly what's in.
Yeah, I just recall in the past with the giant 3-ring binders and all of that, and this is supposed to make life much easier. And just a little update, it might be useful for new board members to know what we're talking about as well.
Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions on the resolution before the board? Roll call, please.
Mr. Everett,
Yes.
Mr. Witowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Mr. Lady, you there?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 8, move to approve the services reimbursement agreement between the Biglerville Borough and the Upper Adams School District for special police services as per the attached agreement.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to recommend approval for the services reimbursement agreement between Biglerville Borough and the Upper Adams School District. And it's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mr. Witowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lady.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, item 9, move to approve the service order agreement for Zoom video conferencing services between the Upper Adams School District and the Lincoln Intermediate Unit 12 for the period of July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2023 at the cost of $7,800 per year as per the attached agreement.
Do I hear a second? There's a motion before the board to approve a service order agreement for Zoom video conferencing between the Upper Adams School District and LIU 12 for a period of 3 years starting this July, and it's been seconded. This is item 11A9 on your agenda. Any discussion?
Yeah, so is this for the board meetings and other meetings, or is it for?
I was just going to
classrooms?
ask Mr. Van Dyke to please explain this a little bit. He and I had a discussion earlier today.
Certainly. This will be a license under the LIU for Zoom services. We will purchase 200 individual licenses for teachers to use, and we will have 2 500 user webinar rooms as part of this agreement. I think if you look at the pricing model that we're getting versus what is available to the public, it's very favorable for the district to purchase it under the LIU umbrella.
And what would the teachers or whoever use these webinar rooms for?
They could be used by principals if they would like to do a remote like back to school night to speak to parents. They could have up to 500 different individuals in a room at one time. It could be used to have large instruction meeting with an entire grade level if teachers would want to use it to that capacity. And it's not like the webinar or like the Zoom room where there's complete interaction like we have with this board meeting, but the webinar room is kind of like watching a live TV event.
Okay. Well, would this be, Dr. Dahl, this question's for you. Is this something that you feel is necessary to mitigate potential problems with COVID come the fall?
I do. And we have been discussing and planning as an administrative team. Last week, we had our administrative symposium. We did look at the Zoom video options, and we came to consensus administratively. We are trying to, use taxpayer dollars the best as Jim had mentioned, going under the umbrella of the IU is the better way of doing that. We're getting some free services right now using the current Zoom, but at some point, there will be a cost to that. So we are setting the district up to utilize this in a number of ways. If for some reason we have to continue, or certain parents decide they want to continue education remotely for their children, this is an option. I think we have to be proactive. Plus, we need to let the IU know. I think that it was due now, whether or not we were going to commit to this. But yes, it is a plan for us to fall back on if needed in the future.
And Mrs. Hobbs, have we figured out how to get this into the budget?
We did discuss that. Yes, currently there is money in the budget being paid for out of, I believe, Dr. Dahl's budget, and we have funds that we could use for next year. That is correct.
Okay. Mr. Ratowski, does that help answer whatever questions, concerns you might have?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I would add too, this is the right choice from my perspective. I've worked with about 15 different conference companies in the past several months, and this is by far the best tool. Although my computer's frozen right here.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 10, move to approve contract for the transportation of school students for the extended school year 2019-20. Students between Folium Incorporated doing business as Rolling Hills Transit and the Upper Adams School District at the rate of $1.60 per mile, beginning at the Adams County line as per the attached agreement.
Second.
We have a motion before the board to approve the contract for transportation between the Upper Adams School District and Folium Inc. doing business as Rolling Hills Transit, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Perhaps somebody could just start out by explaining why are we doing this, and also why are we using a transit company other than the three that we do business with?
Ann, are you able to speak to that?
Sure, I can speak to that. We have been tasked with reaching out to some other special education transportation services currently. We haven't been able to finalize a contract with our current provider. And I was familiar with Folium for some other services that they have done. I also worked with the CEO in Franklin County. We did meet with Rolling Hills folks, Mrs. Hobbs and Mr. Van Dyke, and I met with them. We liked their approach. We liked their professionalism, and we also like the training of their staff on the specific vehicles. They've had a lot of behavior training, and we thought it was pretty progressive. We wanted to feel them out, so we thought that ESY was a good time to do that. And so we did the contract for ESY. If both parties are happy, this is a transportation company that we would like to continue to work with.
Who are we currently using for special ed students?
We are using some Jacobys, but most of our transit is through School Express.
Okay. And are these rates that we're being looked at, that we're looking at here, comparable to what we are paying now?
They are slightly higher than School Express prices.
Okay.
I think it's, am I correct, Mrs. Hobbs? I think it's 20 for non-wheelchair cents, and for wheelchair students, it's 10 cents more.
That is correct.
Okay. And this is only for the month of July for your extended school year right now. Is that also correct?
Yes, it is.
Right. And that would imply, I think, that if that goes well, you may be coming back to the board for a contract for a whole year for the next school year?
Yeah, we are looking to possibly utilize them for some of our services, correct?
Okay. Any other, is there, I guess the other question I have is, our current contractors weren't interested in working the issue during July? I mean, what motivated us to go look for another company?
We are currently working between attorneys to try to settle what payments to pay it. We basically, after tonight, will pay out the other transportation entity.
Right.
We still have not settled with this particular company. We did reach out in an email and the individuals did not respond back to us, but their attorney did. So we know that they did receive the request, but we have no idea at this point whether or not they're interested in it. Therefore, we would need to move forward.
Okay, so you're talking about School Express here.
I am. And
Okay.
I think the minor increase is well worth the pay, just looking at customer service.
All right, well, this is a comment for Mrs. Hobbs. About a year and a half ago, we went through an effort to have an umbrella contract, if you will, for all three of the then normal transportation companies. And so at some point, we're going to need to go back and look at that, not tonight, and see where we are with that if we're now contracting with a fourth company and may continue that into the future.
I would agree with you, Tom, and I think Shelley and Ann, we're all on the same page at this point. We're very happy with the busing companies and the transportation they provide. I do think it's time to go for an RFP for special education transportation services.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Jansen,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Ratowski.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, item 11, move to approve the renewal of the instructional media services agreement for 2020-21 with the LIU 12 as per the attached agreement.
Second.
Motion before the board to approve the renewal of the instruction media services agreement between Upper Adams School District and LIU 12, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, could we have yet another roll call?
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Ratowski.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you, Mrs. Kraus. That was quite a number of items to have to take care of.
It was.
We'll move on to personnel. Mrs. Janzik.
Thank you. Tonight, we're going to recommend approval for item B2A under professional to change from part-time to full-time position for Gina Pecker, science teacher, Biglerville High School, effective 8/21/2020.
Second.
Before we go any further, in the interest of time, we might want to expand the motion to include both of the items under professional and the same when we get to classified.
Okay. So should I say it again?
Well, you could say, and in addition to that,
Okay.
rather than that.
And in addition to that, item B, recommend approval to hire Lynn Hughes, language arts teacher, Upper Adams Middle School, Masters 30. Step 1, $53,485 effective the start of 2020-21 school year, replacing Angie Granger, pending receipt of all required paperwork.
Second again.
Terrific. We have a motion before the board to approve the change from part-time to full-time for Gina Peacher and to hire Lynn Hughes as a language arts teacher for a Master's 30, Step 1, at $53,485. These are items 11B, 2A, and B on your agendas. Any discussion? And this is the middle school teacher that we talked about in the budget while we were generating the budget, correct, Dr. Dole?
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Rotowski.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
I recommend approval under item 11B3A of classified to increase summer hours for Brooke Roberts, administrative assistant, Bendersville Elementary School, from 5 hours per day to 7.75 hours per day, effective 7/1/2020.
Second.
A motion before the board to increase the summer hours for Brooke Roberts, the administrative assistant at Bendersville, from 5 to 7 3/4 hours per day. This is item 11B3A on your agenda, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Can someone, perhaps Mrs. Wolf, discuss why we're doing this, why this is being presented?
I can share. With the buildings combining, we are moving Brooke Roberts over to the Upper Adams Intermediate School. And this would mirror all of our buildings having at least 2 administrative assistants. And in doing so, we would need to increase her time for coverages and things of that nature at the Upper Adams Intermediate School. This has been part of the budget. This was actually in the budget before our previous business administrator left.
Okay, that satisfies me. Anyone else have questions or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Rotowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Lady.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 11B4A, supplemental contracts. We're recommending approval of the supplemental contracts for extended school year for 2019-2020 as per the attached listing.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to approve the supplemental contracts for the extended school year as listed in your agenda, item 11B4A. It's been seconded. Any discussion? I'm assuming these are all people in support of the special ed program. Is that accurate, Dr. Corwell?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Lady.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
And finally, item 11B, 5B, under other contracted and volunteer services, recommend approval to add the following individuals to the ESS Northeast teacher and support staff substitute listing. Jenna Botts, guest teacher, retroactive at 4/1/2020.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to recommend adding Jenna Botts as the guest teacher for the ESS teacher substitute listing in your agenda, as was just read by Mrs. Janzik, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Janzik. We'll move on to property, Mr. Lady.
Okay, item number 1, move to approve of the Upper Adams School District Board of Directors resolution for the closure of Bendersville Elementary School effective the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year as per the attached resolution.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to recommend approval of a closing of the resolution by the board closing the Bendersville Elementary School effective the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Dr. Dahl, I'm assuming that if the board votes in favor of this and the building project, hits a snag, that we could still use the building for education.
That is correct. Bob McQuaid, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but I think it's my understanding the way the resolution is crafted, it allows us that flexibility, but also meets the needs of the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Based on the seriousness of this resolution, I'd like to have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
If I may, just very briefly, Tom, I'd like to say, as a parent of 3 kids who went to Bendersville, it's a sad day in that regard, and we have many fond memories there, and we're very thankful for all of the staff, all the teachers, and all the other kids and parents. But it was something. Its time had come, and I'm sad, but it's time for the district to move on.
Yeah, it's always an emotional time when you have to close down something like that. Mrs. Wolf's administrative report had, a sort of a tribute to the 69 years of the school, and yeah, you're right. It's a big deal.
Thank you to everyone, though.
I'll concur with Chris also.
All right, Mr. Lady, you want to continue, please?
Okay, item number 2, move to approve a Bill 3 packet from Lawrenceville Borough for billing updates for P. Daniel Altland, attorney at law.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to approve the Bill 3 packet from Lawrenceville Borough, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Fee.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
One more time, Mr. Lee.
Okay. Item number 3, move to approve of the Tanner Furniture contract number 57778/AA for the Upper Adams Intermediate School furniture in the amount of $309,967.11. The Board of School Directors approved the purchase of furniture not to exceed $310,000 on 3/17/2020.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to approve the Tanner Furniture contract in the amounts listed for the new furniture for the Arntsville Intermediate School, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? I would only like to comment to Mrs. Buckley that what are you going to do with the $32.89 that you didn't spend on this furniture?
I have no idea. I have to think carefully about that one.
Any pertinent discussion or comments? Could I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jen,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
yes,
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Rotowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lady. Dr. Fee, would you mind doing transportation for us this evening?
Sure. I've got it open right here. All right. Item 1, I'd like to recommend approval of, or can I do these both together?
No.
Okay.
The other one, the second one's going to be a little harder.
Fair enough. Item 1, I'd like to recommend, I move to recommend approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Upper Adams School District and Jacoby Transportation.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to approve the MOU between Jacoby and the Upper Adams School District, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Somewhere between Dr. Dahl and Mrs. Hobbs, could you please tell us where we are on this?
This, for Jacoby Transportation, this, it settles it for the 1920 school year.
Okay.
With school ending on March 13th, we settled with them at the 65% of the remaining contract from the March 13th to the end of the school year, which is the same MOU that was settled with Weaver Transportation in the previous month.
Yeah, that was my next question. Okay, so we're settled now, assuming the board approves this, with 2 of our 3 transportation companies.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Does anyone on the board want any further explanation as to why this, what this is all about? Okay, good. Could I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Rotowski,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
yes,
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Janzik.
Yes.
Thank
you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, item 2, approve the MOU between the Upper Adams School District and Kyle B. Fluke School Bus LLC.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to approve the MOU between the Upper Adams School District and the Kyle B. Fluke School Bus LLC, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Perhaps, I'm not sure who, but somebody could explain what this is all about.
Sure. Mr. Fluke also does some transportation for us regarding athletics. And
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I forgot about that.
yes, so this represents the 65% for those items as well
Right.
under the Act 13.
And does he do some band things as well?
Yes.
That's the bus. Mhm.
Okay, I remember now. Mrs. Janzik and I were discussing this. Do you understand what was just said, Cindy? You're muted.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I forgot that there was a fourth bus company, but they do very limited things. Okay. Any other discussion on this, the motion before the board? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mr. Rotowski,
Yes.
and Mr. Wilson.
Aye,
Thank you. Motion carries.
thank you, and thank you, Dr. Fee.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to curriculum, Mrs. Jones.
All right. The first item that we have is to have a presentation on K through 12 music. And I believe Mr. Album will be in charge of that, and will introduce the other people that are going to participate.
Yes, good evening again. Thank you, Mrs. Jones. I had the pleasure for the last 3 months or so to work with the music department on taking a look at our music curriculum K-12. So we started at the very, very basics and beginning, and we took a look at the program K-12. What does it look like at elementary, middle school, high school? What are some of the extracurriculars and so forth? And we put together, I should say they put together a brochure format that you have in front of you. And that's what they're going to be referring to tonight. The actual curriculum is there as well. Please certainly take a look at that. It's 282 pages. Obviously, we have a lot of courses, a lot of content that we cover. But the brochure is something we've done in other curriculum areas as well. And it gives you a nice scope and sequence of the K-12 program. And it kind of breaks down the overall mission and vision of what the music department believes and how they roll out their content. Your main facilitator this evening is going to be Mr. Alex Schweitzer. He's our new to us, a new band director this year at the 4, 5, 6 level. He does instrumental music at that level. He's gonna kind of introduce tonight and be the facilitator throughout the presentation. And then we're gonna have some other folks talk about their particular area. And we wanted to bring this to you tonight and not wait any longer, simply because Patty Fetro, our Patty, is retiring this
night.
And she is retired. She will tell you she's retired, but she has graciously given up some of her time this evening to speak to the elementary programs. So I will turn this over to Alex, and he can get started.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Schweitzer. If I could be permitted to share my screen by whomever is the host. Give me 1 second to share my screen, and there we go. So once again, good evening, everyone. On behalf of myself and the music faculty here at Upper Adams School District, we thank you for listening to our presentation, and we hope to give you a taste of what we've been working on for the past 2 months of our updated music curriculum. So quick introduction. Our music faculty, there's 5 of us. Patty Fetro is at Biggerville Elementary, the general music teacher. Unfortunately, she is retiring this year. We have Ann Gerlitsky, who are Arndsville and Bendersville Elementary general music and chorus. We have myself at Arndsville Elementary and Bendersville Elementary Band, Nicole Kelly at the Biggerville High School and Middle School general music and chorus, and Ray Philippi, Biggerville High School, Middle School and band. So our vision for the music department at Upper Adams School District is that students will graduate from the program with a strong foundational understanding of music theory, artistry, and performance. Through music, students will develop skills to analyze, communicate, and create. With these tools, students will navigate their future roles as public speakers, performers, collaborators, community members, and lifelong consumers of music. And our mission is that the K-12 music program of the Upper Adams School District provides unique and varied musical opportunities through a holistic and foundational music curriculum. Students will experience music through moving, singing, playing instruments, improvising and composing, critical listening, performing, reflecting, analyzing, exploring culture, and connecting music to other content areas. So here's a brief overview of the courses we offer, and as Mr. Albin said, you can follow along in the brochure that we've created. Without any further ado, Patty, you're up.
All right, general music K3, and may I say that I've been blessed all these years to be a part of this team, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the K3 children and the curriculum that I've been teaching. So as they come with some knowledge of music, if they've had some preschool, there are some very nice preschool music things going on, but this is where the magic begins, so to speak, and then my colleagues take over. So we develop music concepts. Solfege is exactly what Julie Andrews taught to the children when she sang Do Adir in The Sound of Music. It is a viable and valuable way of teaching music to children. It's not just for Hollywood. The other things that you'll see, we develop rhythmic concepts, also musical skills and creative expression. If you look at number 3, one of the words you may not know is audiation, which is inner hearing, being able to hear music in your head and track it. It is a very valuable skill, and many believe is one of the foremost skills that we need in continuing in music. I think you can read the others, the extensions of music through performances, through scenes, symphony, theater, ballet, and also for the performance opportunities that they have at these grade levels.
Thank you, Patty. And here's Annie Gralitsky for 4 through 7.
Patty has given them such a strong foundation in Kodály and in Solfege. We continue that through 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. We continue to then branch upon that by learning more about the music staff, learning the lines, the spaces, how to really read the music, and be able to transport that into a musical instrument such as drumming, such as ukulele, such as playing the recorder. So we continue to build upon those concepts. We finish up as much as we can during these years, some of those musical concepts, by rounding out with more genres, such as introducing them to opera, such as introducing them to the other musical instruments in the orchestra and band, such as doing square dancing, learning the history of all of that. We add computer components with GarageBand so that we continue to teach them current technology. We have patriotic units where we go over those sorts of foundation and even jazz. So there's so much more then that we take and build during the 4, 5, 6. But from there we go into 7th grade. So Nicole?
Yes, in 7th grade, as the kids reach middle school in 7th and 8th grade, if you're familiar, they have what's called exploratory classes. So during these exploratory classes, they have 6 different exploratories throughout the year. And 7th grade is really the last year that I get to have students for general music. And it's such a short window of time. It almost equivalates to about 20 music classes. So I kind of take what I can and culminate all of this good stuff that's the foundation that has been built upon. And we do a lot of just creating. I think their biggest project is creating a song from start to finish. And they actually walk out of my room at the end of 7th grade and they have a product that they can take with them, that they've used all of the elements found in music. And they have something to show for that, because they may not see me or Mr. Philippi again at the high school level unless they opt to take a music elective or if they're in an ensemble such as band or chorus.
Speaking of chorus.
chorus is not always as easy as you think. It's not students just coming in and having a fun time singing a song. Up to this point, they just sing a melody, but to train your voice and to train a student to be so self-confident that they can do harmony, that they can stand up in front of a group of people and perform is truly a great task. And we accomplish that through the co-curricular activity of chorus. And they learn also how to read a whole music staff. In other words, that whole choral octavo that has the piano parts and the vocal lines. And this is something that is completely new to them. So it's a great new skill. So we learn the art of performance. We learn the art of singing tunefully and singing as an ensemble. But that's where it begins in elementary chorus during the day for all students that choose. And going from there?
Yes, from there, middle school chorus is available to any student. They don't have to have participated at the elementary level with Anne. And at the middle school level, it really gives me a lot of time to fine tune and hone in on all of the skills that you can see in the slide here, because I see those kids every day at the end of the day. Unless they have band, then they're shared for an every other day. But again, we fine tune working with their voice, working with their changing voice as they're going through that in the middle school, and really seeing what they can do and making great music, showing them how to phrase and how to add dynamics and emotion to carry through in their performances. They have 2 to 3 performances a year. And then the middle school kids also have an opportunity to audition for and perform in what is called county chorus, where all the Adams County schools come together for a festival over a weekend with a guest conductor. So they learn new things and new techniques from someone brand new, get to make new friends with kids from other schools. And it's usually in the fall or in the winter time. And kids that do that have to audition. So it's a more top-notch group that's performing, but they do get a lot out of it in joining in that process. And then from there, I have high school chorus as well. That picture actually shows a combination of middle school and high school county chorus students that did a combined piece this past year. But here's where like the true artistry really takes place. We work on more advanced music. I try and do pieces that include different languages with them. It's a lot more of the analyzing of what the text or the poetry is about, why this piece is important, maybe historically, or what its value is, and how to really get emotions out of your audience, how to make them feel what it is you're trying to portray in your singing to them. Last year, and I'd also like to just plug that we try and show a variety of genres and styles. Last year, the high school chorus did a bluegrass song, and I invited a bluegrass band to play along. This year, Mr. Philippi and I had arranged for a medieval and fantasy themed performance that had some really neat movie pieces or songs from movies that I think the audience would have recognized. Hopefully we can save them for another year, or maybe this year to recycle them, but just exposing them to new literature all the time. They also have 2 to 3 concerts throughout the year. They are also eligible to audition for county chorus, but then the high schoolers have a more rigorous audition process if they wish to audition for something called district chorus. And we are District 7, which is comprised of, Ray, you might want to pop in and help me, 4 to 5 counties. I think it's Adams, Cumberland, Dauphin, Lancaster, Lebanon area. So it's very competitive, and they might get a chance to sing 2 snippets of 2 pieces that they had to rehearse, and they only take the top 24, where they might be auditioning out of 100 different singers. So some of my really top singers audition for that process if they so choose, and after districts they could go on to regionals and audition for that. And the other highlight of high school is I have a select ensemble that meets outside of the school day and perform at different community events and wherever we can kind of get out there and showcase some of the talent that we have in our school.
And that's the chorus end. Back to the instrumental end in the band world, I teach elementary band, and the 2 things that we primarily focus on are the fundamental principles of sound production. In other words, how to play the instrument. We offer flute, clarinet, saxophone, trumpet, French horn, trombone, baritone, tuba, snare drum, and mallet percussion. So we teach the fundamental skills of those instruments, sound production. We also introduce the expectations of range, intonation, articulation, and again, technical facility and finger dexterity. The other thing that we work on is how to play together as an ensemble, how to develop practice strategies, how to be self-aware of your instrument and those around you. And we relate all of the pieces that we play into historical and cultural context. And we learn those skills as an elementary school so that we can conquer some more difficult repertoire in middle and high school.
So at the middle school level, I take everything that Alex has taught these young students in terms of how to play their instrument, the basics and fundamentals of music, and we expand them. At the middle school level, the individual lessons are meant to reinforce the skills that they've already learned. On top of that, it's really meant to help them develop a characteristic sound on their instrument to help them grow and understand what the extremes of the ranges are, what kind of extended techniques they can use to make themselves sound better. And in addition to that, they learn and develop new skills while improving their fundamentals during their ensemble music as well. Music becomes more difficult as a result of new rhythms, time signatures, and extremes and ranges. Students develop a new sense of ensemble awareness. Building off of what Alex had said earlier, they need to learn, wow, if I play too loud in this section, I won't be able to hear, the upper range of the whole band. They become more aware of the band as a whole as opposed to themselves as individuals at this stage. And I start to give students more agency and decision-making when it comes to how things are played. I prompt them more on, what kind of things can we do with the dynamic in order to make this section sound more interesting? I might give them 2 or 3 different options to choose from, and we'll play through all those options and give them some more choices and a little bit more agency in making those decisions. At the high school level, that gets expanded even further. The work during the individual lessons is focused more on the mastery of the fundamentals of the instrument and really being able to play the entire range, knowing all of your scales, knowing all of the little tricks and alternate fingerings that you can use on your instrument to be able to play with facility. Music becomes more challenging due to the technical considerations, as well as the challenging ensemble things that pop up. Sometimes every person in the ensemble might be on a different part. And when that happens, it requires a lot of independence and strength on the individual instrument in order to accomplish that, even as an ensemble. At this point, students are encouraged to be more independent in their musicianship. I tell my students, I give you the permission to be musical. And it is each individual's responsibility in the ensemble to make sure that they're prepared during the ensemble, that they're working towards the highest quality of musicianship that they can provide, and that they are in fact practicing their music. And then this is the part where we would start to talk more about the aesthetic and artistic decisions behind music making and really delve into the more philosophical parts of what does it mean to perform for an audience? How do we put on a performance? How do we create something that is good and start to measure the aesthetic value of what we do?
And that's our band program. In addition to the band and chorus and general music programs, we have a few electives, which Mr. Philby and Mrs. Kelly are going to briefly talk about.
So for the intro to ukulele, intro to guitar, and intro to keyboard, we decided to put these all in one slide and in one section of the brochure due to the fact that despite the fact that Nikki and I both teach different classes out of these 3 and that each of them are formatted differently, the intent behind them is similar in that the purpose of these classes is to try and bring in more students from the general school population that's not involved necessarily in chorus or band. We're trying to make learning a new instrument accessible and hoping that in doing so, they can learn a little bit more about music theory, learn a little bit more about songwriting or performance, and just giving them an opportunity to learn a new instrument and perform in front of peers and parents and teachers.
Another music elective at the high school that I teach, it's 1 semester long, there is music appreciation. And this is not really a glorified general music class such as what students would have had K to 7. It's really talking about all of the elements of music and analyzing each one, and analyzing how they are used in the songs that we listen to, the music we listen to as a person, as an individual, as a culture, how we listen to different kinds of music. And so we incorporate a little bit of world music with that, with different instruments around the world, and talk about how that changes the sound from a cultural and a geographical standpoint. We do a little bit of composing, we do a little bit of instrument playing, but this is definitely more a class that's a lot more listening examples and talking and discussion, and really finding out the back history on some of the genres that the kids would be more familiar with. We start with blues, and go into jazz and do some rock, and then hip hop and into rap. So they can kind of see the melding of music and how it has evolved to create this pop music and whatever else it is that we listen to today.
Music theory, on the flip side, is entirely about the nitty gritty and kind of the more esoteric components of learning music. We start off with really kind of simple driving questions like, what is beat? What is rhythm? And from there, we build on that and kind of learn about, okay, so we know these words, we've heard them before, but let's really analyze what exactly that is and how we use that to create music. A lot of this class is composition based, and so they learn how to notate music. Then using various softwares, they'll create their own compositions with very specific guidelines in order to explore different aspects of music and writing music. This does require teacher pre-approval. Students need to come to me first just to make sure that I am confident that they can keep up in that regard. Usually it's because they've had some sort of music training in the past. It's not limited to those students by any means, but I do like to make sure they have a little bit of fundamental knowledge coming in so they don't fall behind.
And finally, we do have some extracurricular musical activities that are not part of the curriculum. Myself and Ray are leaders of the marching band, our award-winning marching band, as you can see from the photo above. We have a jazz band. We have many different chamber ensembles at all levels, including a flute ensemble, a sax quartet and quintet, brass ensembles, percussion ensembles, such as indoor drumline, indoor color guard. On the choral end, we have select chorus, and then musical theater, both in all levels of the elementary school and the high school. And then, of course, we have county, district, region, all-state band and chorus. I neglected to mention, we also have festivals at the elementary level for Elementary Song Fest, and I have honor band for band as well. So many extracurricular options for students to participate in who are members of the program.
And before we conclude, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Patty Fetro for all of your years of service. We truly could not do what we do without the attention to detail that you have put into everything that you have taught these kids over the years. The students that we work with today are a direct result of your foundational teaching. So thank you so much for that. Whoever is coming in after you is going to have big shoes to fill. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could echo that, thank you, Patty, for the many years that you've put in. You brought a lot of memories and joy to a lot of kids. So thank you for that. Don't be a stranger. You don't live that far away. You can see Arnsville Elementary from your house.
Yes, I can update you on the building, at least on the outside.
Best wishes to you, Patty. Thanks again for all you do.
You will be missed.
Patty Fetro rocks.
So does Crispy. I have so many memories of all of you, and so many of you I've taught children and grandchildren of yours. And it's a bittersweet thing. It has been a wonderful career for me, and I wasn't going to try to cry. But thank you all very much. I have felt the love and support every minute that I've been here, and it's really been my dream job.
Again, thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
And I have
Thank
one
you.
request. Alex, I have one request. Do you still have the May 4th, May the 4th be with you Star Wars that you had? If you would share that with Candy, who would then share it with the board members. That still is memorable to me. Came out May 4th, about the time everybody needed a pick-me-up, and that was just wonderful.
Sure, I can send that to Candy. Yep.
I would like to say thank you, Alex, and the entire music team. It's obvious you are all very passionate about what you teach, and what a gift that is to our students. You all elaborated on, skill and technique and genres. Surely you communicate to the children a love for music that is intrinsic, and so we do thank you. I do have one comment, and my daughter especially, well, two of them went through chorus, loved it, had county chorus and all that under Mr. Schwartzball. So as we all know, the climate right now is so sensitive to racial reconciliation and such. We live in a largely white Hispanic community, and I'm just didn't know, I'm sure you do have Black gospel as part of the genres as well. That wasn't mentioned, but my goodness, music is probably one of those exceptional course or classes, topics that we can reinforce how important that is and what that sound is all about and the message.
And I do that starting in elementary.
Agreed. Thank you. We have that type of music in almost every concert that we do. So thank you.
That's great.
Wonderful to hear.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Any other comments on the presentation that was just provided?
Well, I would just like to say that it's obvious from this very helpful and comprehensive presentation why there is so much support for the music program in the community as well as throughout the district. And you have done an amazing job of showing us in depth just why it was so important that we save this program. And I think we're all very, very happy that we were able to do that. And so thank you very much for that.
All right, Mrs. Jones, would you proceed with the next item?
All right, well, I just had one question for Nicole and Alex and anybody else who wants to address it. Do you already have some anticipated way of dealing with the challenges of a chorus and a band in a COVID era of the pandemic?
That is a great question, Mrs. Jones. Thank you. If I may speak first. Throughout this time that we've been in remote learning, I've been conducting remote virtual lessons. In fact, I was actually teaching today on Tuesdays. So I can still reach the majority of, I think I've had about 70% of my students in the band program at the elementary level show up to lessons continuously since we've been away from school, even in March. Full ensemble rehearsals have been a challenge. I've done over 200 recordings in the past several months so that students can play along with those recordings, so that they can have a variety of repertoire, not just from the lesson book, so that I can be their virtual teacher as well. In terms of full ensemble meetings, that is a question that we have yet to answer, and it's largely dependent on what we're allowed to do as a school, as a full district, in terms of CDC guidelines and gathering spaces and what we're able to do. So rest assured that we will do whatever it takes in our power to maintain those ensembles and to maintain the best education for our students that we can possibly provide. At this exact moment, the exact answer to your question is still up in the air.
There have been a number of studies, however, done about the amount of air displacement that occurs through various kinds of music making. Particularly on the instrumental end, it's been a lot of kind of promising research to show that there isn't a whole lot of air displacement that occurs, that it's really the vibration of the instrument that creates the sound most of the time. And there isn't a whole lot of air being projected into the atmosphere as a result of the instrument sounding. And so if there are any concerns about proximity and handling of instruments and putting them to the faces and whatnot, the only I'm sorry to say it, spittle that they're going to be dealing with is their own. So I've seen a lot of articles for choral groups as well that talk about if, you know, worst case scenario, singing with masks on or things like that, and still being able to perform in a variety of ways that would prevent any sort of airborne spread.
There's a comical image going around social media of a person with a choral folder wearing like a full body suit kind of deal, which, you know, is sort of a joke, but also very possible with what we might, you know, need to do.
This will all be part of our safety program as we come back together. But I would remind that there was a church choir in the state of Washington that had practice, and then after the practice, there was quite a large number of people who got sick, and a shockingly large number of people that died. So her question was spot on. We have to do this safely.
Right, and there are still studies being conducted and being researched, and, you know, what a good number is, what scheduling might look like as far as singers in a classroom. I think that's all still up in the air. And again, I think once we find out what the school's guidelines are going to be and working with them, I would love to be on that team to help roll out a plan for these ensembles.
Because I trust you entirely to be mindful of all of this, but to figure out a way that we can still allow students to excel. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. And like Anne said, the choral side of it, or I guess Alex was saying, as a full ensemble I've had with my high school and middle school kids, I mean, we're talking 50 to 75% showing up to and singing participation, but you can't do that in the Zoom because you can't hear each other at the same time. It's just not possible. High schoolers were more adept to recording themselves, and I've made recordings for both of my groups for one of their songs that they were to have performed in the spring. I might send that on to Candy as well to share with you. But the high schoolers are definitely more willing to do that, more confident in their singing. Middle schoolers, not so much. You know, there's definitely that safety in numbers, and that's why they want to be part of a group and part of that community. So yes, we will definitely be looking into different options as we look to the fall.
For sure. And recognize that the virtual ensembles that you may have seen floating around the internet are largely in part of very good video editor and audio editors. Yes. So we are exploring some of those options as well, and we'll do whatever we need to do.
Yeah, but when we have those large ensembles, it's not something that you can just easily put out. So we will see how the year unfolds.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, the next thing is to recommend approval of the K-12 music curriculum.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Jones.
That is my motion.
Second.
There's a motion before the board to recommend approval of the K-12 music curriculum, and it has been seconded. Discussion, please. Mr. Albin, you sound like you were anxious to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, we normally present this ahead of time and then at a committee meeting and then ask for approval at the board meeting. With the timing of getting some last minute things with the curriculum taken care of, being kind to our music teachers as they're wrapping up end of year things with their students with the online and remote learning, and Patty Fetro's retirement. It just, the timing worked out that we have these back to back tonight. So if the board is so inclined and would be willing to approve the curriculum, we would ask for that recommendation this evening. If it's not something you feel comfortable doing because you want to further review it, that is fine as well. But we wanted to present it to you as an option.
Thank you.
I will defer to Mrs. Kraus and Mr. Ebert as former teachers, and would enjoy hearing their comments on the curriculum.
I haven't studied it thoroughly. I was looking at the structure of it, because it's the same format that I used when I was teaching. So I get lost in that a little bit. I'm actually okay with approving this tonight so that things can move on from this point.
I was not able to get it interacting, but again, I have no problems with approving it this evening. The brochure, I think, is a very good touch, and the presentation, I think, was stellar this evening. And like I said, I've dealt with it for years, so I know what's in the music curriculum. Unless they've changed it greatly, it has my approval.
Okay, it would be it's useful to review how we got where we're at. And you may recall that at the committee meeting in March, there was a recommendation made by a coalition of teachers to hire a computer science person, and this was going to impact the proposal was that would impact on the music program, and that caused a great deal of concern among people. And part of the investigation into all that revealed that the music curriculum was fairly disjointed, not the actual teaching, but the curriculum that you present to people. This is what we're going to do, was very scattered about. And so now we have the curriculum that's in one place, as it should be, as it is with the other things that we teach in the district. However, the issue with the computer science was overtaken by events. I mean, within the 2-week period between the board meeting, the committee meeting and the board meeting, schools were closed, and we were taken down a much different road. So the issue of the computer science has never been addressed because it just didn't rise to the level of something that we needed to deal with. And then of course we had budget concerns, and so we are where we are. I don't, based on what I heard from Mrs. Krause and Mr. Everett, I don't have a problem with approving the curriculum, and I want to keep the program whole. I also think in the fullness of time we need to figure out how to address we need to figure out whether we want to address the computer science issue, and if we do for the district, how are we going to do that within the context of the entire curriculum, not just the music curriculum.
I will say it's impressive to see the entire curriculum in one document as it is, K to 12, with everything represented that is being offered. And,
yeah,
and I know it took a great deal of work to get to that point tonight.
Right, and I'm very appreciative of the efforts of the music teachers in the district to be able to put that together so that we can, as a board, look at this and say where we are in the continuum, and also we have the confidence to go to the public and anybody else that comes along and wants to look at it to say, this is what we do in this particular area of instruction.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments on the motion before the board? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Jones.
You're welcome.
I don't think there's anything for athletics or other student activities. And so, Mr. Everett, we'll go to you, and yours is pretty truncated this evening as well.
It sure is. We did not meet in June, so there are no minutes for approval. There are no first read policies. We have 6 second read policies, 220, 226, 246, 335, 626, and 810.1. I would move that we approve those for second reading and include them in our policy manual.
Second.
As a motion before the board to approve the 6 policies listed in your agenda and include them in our policy directives, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Mute. Mr. Lady, you're muted. You're muted, Jim. Okay.
Aye. Sorry.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
and Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Everett. Now we'll go on to item 14, the phase school reopening and safety plan. And I will turn this over to Dr. Dahl, please.
Sure, and this has been a team effort over the past week. As I mentioned earlier, on Friday, June the 5th, we received the template from PDE on what they were requiring to have board approved before the beginning of the school year. We are currently working with the information that we have at this time, and we know that we will need to bring this template back to you as there are a number of resources that will be released throughout the state in the next couple weeks. And as we get more guidance, we want to open this up and get certain areas clarified. But this particular template that you see is going to be the required board approved template as we select options to provide education to students next year. It is entitled the Phased School Reopening Health and Safety Plan Template. And through that 30-page document, it has a number of types of reopening. We are looking at the possibility of what it would look like if we come back as a regular school year. We're looking at what it would look like if we're in remote learning mode, similar to what we were from the middle of March till the end of the school year. And in some of these cases, we have to plan both ways, in addition to looking at what it may look like if it were a combination of both, because we're not sure at this point what color we may be in at the end of the summer. We keep hearing about increases. At this point, we're in green. So we're basing this model upon what it looks like as green. We have selected a blended reopening where it could have, a number of different things. And we're collecting data from our stakeholders at this time. There was a survey that was released as of 4 o'clock this afternoon. There were about 355 responses to that. And within that, it has a number of different questions to help guide us as we begin to pull a plan together. At some point, we will want to have our school solicitors backing on the plan that we have put into place, but there still are guidelines for transportation that have not been received yet. There's still a number of guidelines, but we felt a need to start because we want to begin to sample what this may look like with our extended school year program. And in order for us to start an extended school year program, we must have this template approved by the board, even though we know some things could be changing even by the time that we implement the extended school year for some of our students. So we went through this administratively last week. We did have our administrative symposium, June 9th, 10th, and 11th. We included our entire administrative team. We also included Chris McMahon from Airmark, since a lot of this is based upon sanitation and cleaning. We also included Mike Kostick from our food services department, and we also included a school nurse. As we move deeper into this model, we will include more members from the community, whether it be business people, teachers, those types of stakeholders. But we were mandated to create a pandemic coordinator or a team. We are taking a team approach, and we have those people listed in it. There are also some key strategies and policies and procedures that are defined, but then it's broken up into 6 different sections. There's a cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, and ventilation. We broke up into teams according to where our interests or where our strengths were as an administrative team and some of the other people that were with us. And each of those individuals created the plans that you see right now. And then it's broken up into what does it look like if we're in a yellow stage? What does it look like if we're in a green stage? Who's responsible? What types of resources are needed? And do we need to have any kind of professional development for teachers, students, etc.? So all that is outlined. And as I mentioned, we tried to include some areas that still need to be created. This is what I look at as kind of like the overarching policy for our plan when we come back. And then under this, if you think about like administrative regulations, within this plan, then it will be broken down by each of our buildings, and they will create plans on how to implement this, if that makes sense. Just trying to look at that hierarchy. So the template is the overarching plan to give some overall direction, and then the minute details according to what it may look like at Biglerville Elementary compared to what it looks like at the high school. Those things are going to look different, and those will have to be created over the summer with staff at each of the buildings. The plan that we have in place right now is an overview and a collective input of all the people that were part of our administrative team. Towards the end, there's some specific things. A lot of this is related to cleaning, sanitation, what to do with social distancing, how to collect information from students and staff. And then we included as well, we're very fortunate to have Aramark because a lot of this falls back on what does it look like as far as cleaning procedures. And I know Chris McMahon is on this call, but there is also a huge PowerPoint presentation that is shared on all the components and specific things that Aramark will do that are directly related to COVID-19 and how they are cleaning areas. And then we even had a training on how to break the chain. Like if there is, let's just say you have a common cold, if there is a virus and you're trying to break that chain, what does that look like? How do things get spread? How do you keep it from being spread? What are things that can be done by teachers, by students, by our cleaning staff to break that chain, if you will? So some of that, there was a lot that went into this over a short period of time over the last week. We're looking for approval tonight on this plan. We're also looking for some initial approval, and even as of today at 4 o'clock, passes conversation. The state just released a template for athletics. So before we even think about bringing, band members back, football players back, sports, whatever types of teams, there has to be a plan in place for student activities and how do we open up our district. We also need to have this plan approved before that can happen. And the state is providing a similar type of template. I saw the template briefly this evening. It was just released today from the state. But our thought is if we're able to have this approved now, it allows us to keep working. We don't have a board meeting again, unless we call a special meeting until the 3rd week in July. So we would like to have this approved this evening, knowing that we will continue to update this plan and bring you a new plan in the near future as we get closer to the beginning of the school year and as we get more information that is released to us. Anthony, I don't know if there's anything you want to share from the athletic part of it, but I know that we included your plan as far as athletic and extracurricular play and return to play.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is the state did actually release guidelines on June 10th as to the return to play. So the last week, there's been a lot of information going around on what that looks like and generating plans. As Dr. Dahl just said, we recently found out today with PASA that there will be possibly a format that the information I provided tonight could be transferred to that document or that format. But as a starting point and moving forward as to what it looks like just for the summer, and that's what that plan indicates right now for the summer, because we don't know what's going to happen from one week to the next. So that's a living document that will change, but to provide opportunities under the umbrella of the state's guidelines, the plan you see there attached to this agenda is representative of that, and getting those kids and our staffs back in utilizing those guidelines as far as screenings, education, communication with all stakeholders as to the importance of following those guidelines and the information set forth by the state. So that's
Chris McMahon, I don't know if there's anything that you wish to add. I know you're on the call this evening. If there's anything that you wish to add as far as the process and how we went through pulling the plan together.
Well, Dr. Dahl, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be involved in the symposium and to contribute. Aramark's formed a special task force for just the COVID-19 situation. Our playbook is over 165 pages long right now on helping facilities, universities, K through 12s, et cetera, reopen. And particularly to Upper Adams School District, we're able to incorporate a lot of the foundation of what we already do and what do we need to modify and concentrate on. So right now, as was commented during the symposium by some of the principals, we already are concentrating on high touch points. We keep an eye on who comes into the building and when, and we make sure that all high touch points are hit numerous times a day. And even if we don't see somebody, we assume that someone's been in the building sooner or later, and that we need to control and break the chain of infection, so to speak, by concentrating with sanitizing, cleaning, and disinfecting. So we're gearing up on products, PPE, instruction, technique, process. Also, whether it's COVID-19 or construction at Arntsville, we know that you might have to minimize your classroom sizes. So we're already preparing that we might need to use Bendersville Elementary again this fall. So we have Bendersville Elementary ready to go. It'll be reviewed again, cleaned, sanitized, and disinfected. Even for a last minute call, hey, we need that space, we need to use it. So we're going to work with all the different departments, whether it's chorus and band or athletics, or just the curriculum itself and training and teaching our kids. We want to be an integral part, and we're hoping that the plans that we've already drawn up can be used and modified as needed for the vision that Dr. Dahl has and the board has for the school district.
Well, this sounds like a very thorough starting point. I'm very happy as I read through both the presentation that was provided to us from Aramark, as well as your plan, your basic plan. And it appears to me to be very, very thorough. I think we should all keep in mind and try very hard to separate COVID-19 from any political thoughts that you might have one way or the other. We're in the business here of providing a safe environment for not only the students, but the staff and the people that come into the building for whatever they have to come in the building for. And I I think we are all learning about this as we go along, and we would expect things to change. So I hear what you're saying, Dr. Dahl. You want us to approve this plan this evening, and recognize that in approving that, it's the first step, and the plan will change as we go along.
It will definitely change. We know even as of the end of last week, food service, Chartwells is a nationwide company as well. They are anticipating a release of information within the next week or so. So we know that this will continue to change. And then once we get started with extended school year and actually bring students and teachers in, that will help us to test certain areas and see how the flow works, see how the cleaning works, and then that will help us to refine a plan.
We all want to get back to life, to normal life, but we're not going to be able to get back to normal until this whole situation runs its course. And who knows, maybe there's a new normal. But anyway, I think your plan is pretty thorough. Other comments from board members?
A question. So we approve it, and there's a change, which there's likely to be some changes. Does this need to be resubmitted back to PDE, and does PDE have to approve it as well, if I understand correctly?
Yeah, the way it sounds, from what I gather, I don't think PD is going to be saying, yes, your plan works, no, it doesn't, because it's local controls. But they do want, similar to the continuity of ed plan that we were required to submit, it's the same submitting address that we have to send it to. So we will actually send our plan to PDE. They check a box that we had sent it. They're going to look to see if it were board approved, if it was signed, and then we're required to post it on our webpage. But you're absolutely right, James. As these are updated, we will bring them back to the board to have them reapproved, and then we will resubmit them to the state and post the newest version. Kind of like I said, like a policy.
Yeah, so exactly like a policy. You know?
Got it. And it looks to me, by reading this, that we're looking at a potential, well, this is the red phase, but a blended approach. Is this consistent of what other districts in the area are doing? And I'm assuming that you've had conversations with some of these other districts.
I think the conversations are still happening throughout the state. We're moving on this because of doing
the summer.
Yeah, we're doing the extended school year. Not every district is doing that. So that's why we wanted to move. Plus, our administrative team, like, we have a set date that we meet and plan. That happens. So now people are starting to take time here and there, and we won't be able to meet as a cohesive team. It'll be, sharing this as people are taking some time off with their families over the summer. That conversation will most likely still continue, James, between, what are districts doing? But again, I would say that we have to look at what are our resources and what can we provide. What we're able to provide at Upper Adams may not be what a district that's a little bit more affluent may be able to provide. And we know that there are going to be barriers. We know that the survey that we sent out to parents in both Spanish and English, we're getting some pretty clear direction from parents on what they would like or not like to see coming back. So that, I think, is going to be more heavily weighted in how we approach the next several weeks and next months, as opposed to possibly saying, okay, well, this school district has a good plan, let's just adopt what they have. We will have the conversations and share information, but I don't want to be locked into a single plan.
Thank you, Dr. Dahl.
Anyone else? I would conclude this discussion by saying we are very fortunate to have Aramark as our on our team. They bring a back office support that we simply never had.
I would agree.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion before the board?
I should move. We should have done it first, didn't we?
I'm sorry, Chris, you were really broken up. Could you try that again?
I said I moved to approve. Shouldn't we have moved to approve and seconded before we had the discussion?
Maybe I may be losing it, but I thought we did. But if we didn't, then I'll need a motion.
So moved.
I think Chris motioned and I'll second it.
All right, there's a motion before the board to approve the PDE phase school reopening health and safety plan for the Upper Adams School District, and it's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Let's just do another roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mrs. Janzik,
You're muted, Cindy.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Ratowski,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Everett.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right.
Yes.
We'll move on to the payment of the bills. Do I hear a motion to pay the bills?
So moved. Second.
Second.
We have a motion before the board to pay the bills, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? And Mr. Ratowski, I assume you're going to recuse yourself?
I will.
All right. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Everett,
Yes.
Mrs. Janzik,
Yes.
Mr. Lady,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Fee,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
And
Thank you. Motion
I have to
carries.
state why I'm abstaining because my wife is listed on the bills.
Okay. Any old business for the board? Any new business other than what we've already discussed?
We have Chris's presentation by Aramark. Are we going to go into that in any detail, or looked like there was some equipment and probably additional hours? Are we trying to put a cost figure on those?
I think those are
Dr.
still details that we need to work through, Ron. We have a tentative plan right now, but you're absolutely right. There is some COVID money that we know is being released. I believe we just got word today that that's being released. The areas are broad enough, but we need to look at what do we actually need to purchase right now. I know we're looking at like face shields and things of that nature, but specific type of equipment, we haven't narrowed that down yet.
And I guess my other question is, and Chris can maybe answer this, does Aramark already have it? Will we be able to obtain this equipment? Because I'm sure everybody in the United States is looking for similar equipment.
Ron, that's a good question. there is a high demand on different things. Aramark's been working with Dr. Dahl, Anthony, and Shelley on making sure to conform to what you just voted on. What do we need? What do we have? We have the majority of what we need right now. We've placed some orders for some additional PPE, personal protective equipment. On the equipment side, we have already in place the Kyvac machines, which we do use for touchless gang cleaning in the restaurants, which already sprays a disinfectant. And we're also looking at that for locker rooms and other areas. There could be some use in the future of electrostatic sprayers, but right now I think we can meet the requirements without spending a lot of additional money, other than our disinfect, our wipes, our sanitizers, and PPE equipment like shields and masks and gloves and things of that nature. Also, God forbid we get to a level 3 where there's a confirmed case. There is training with Aramark on how to address that, as well as we've already partnered with a third-party company that could come in and immediately take care of a facility if something unfortunate like that was to happen. So Ron, to answer your question, I don't see a need to buy additional equipment right now unless the state changes what they're doing, and Aramark is monitoring the World Health Organization, CDC, all the different states, as well as their own PhDs that they have on staff to give us recommendations. And yes, like the face shields and other things, gowns to protect people, Aramark is making those available. And we've already submitted, quite frankly, at the very early onset of the COVID-19 situation, we were asked as managers to submit what do we think our clients and our customers might need. And so we've been working on that. Numbers are already been reserved. Most of the manufacturers that Aramark works with have committed. They're not taking on new customers, but they will up the percentage that and volume that allowing Aramark to buy more than they normally do. So for right now, we are in good shape, and hopefully we'll stay that way.
And another question, Chris, that's been asked of me by a number of people is our concern for buses. How often and so forth will they be sanitized? I know it's addressed in the document we approved, but does Aramark, are you working with bus drivers to see that that's done properly and regularly and so forth, or how does that work?
Ron,
another good question, Ron. Traditionally, we don't have any responsibility with the buses, but we're more than glad to share any techniques or processes that we have that may help them.
Okay.
Interesting. Anything else, Ron?
No, that's all I have. It's a brave new world out there. It's nothing like we've ever done before.
You're right. Yeah.
Ron,
And
there's still a lot of questions about transportation, and I know Jim and I have talked about this. We will need to reach out to our vendors to find out what plans they have in place, since we pay for that service. That's a contracted service.
I guess my concern again is along the same lines, and I sent you an email concerning it too. This equipment's going to be a hot commodity out there, and I guess there's probably two ways to clean a bus. One's by hand, and one is electrostatically with the proper equipment. And I didn't know whether, again, it'd be a good time to advise bus drivers what probably the requirements are going to be so that they can be prepared.
I think that is up to the contractors themselves. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob McQuaid, but I think, again, that, one of the vendors we use is also used at Gettysburg School District. So I'm sure they're going to have a plan for
Right.
both of our districts.
He's in numerous districts, Fairfield as well, and so forth. But
That brings up a good point, and that would be we need to be informed by the bus contractors how they are handling sanitizing their equipment. That's just part of our plan,
right?
How we're dealing with all this to know what they're doing.
That is a part that we're still researching.
Right.
We don't need buses right now, per se. So we have a little bit of time on that one to do more research. Plus, there's supposedly more guidance coming to us
right
in the future, but we don't have that right now, Ron, to answer all those questions.
Right. And a good dry run will be this extended school year too, to see how they do it and meet the requirements of the state.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was just going to say. This new company that we just approved this evening, figure out what they're doing, because and just to get an idea what one group does to meet the requirements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that will be a benefit of doing the extended school year. Most importantly, it's going to benefit the kids and to get them back in and try to give them a little bit of a boost, to give them some education, but it will also give us a chance to test some things and see how it flows. How does it work? How do we clean? Where are some areas, oh, that came up, we didn't think about that. I would rather be doing that now than at the beginning of the school year.
I agree completely. All right, any further discussion?
Just
right.
a note here, Mr. Wilson, and this is for the Dr. Dahl and the administration, but the recent events with the demonstrations that have been going on in regards to the systemic racism, Upper Adams School District is not immune. We have victims in our school district and perpetrators as well. Just want to make sure that we're considering the recent events and addressing them proactively for the upcoming school year as we bring our students together. We certainly do not want to be a party of the continuation of what's going on, and we want to be an active role in stopping what's going on as well. So I'll leave it there. I'll keep it short. I'm not saying what that would look like, but want it to be seriously considered, and all of us should think deeply about how we want to approach this for the upcoming school year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, James, and there is a lot of conversation about that amongst many of the administrative entities and organizations right now, and they are sharing resources. I did share with our administrative team a document recently just for them to start to reflect on, and then we'll do a follow-up and try to see what we can do as we bring the school community back together for the new year.
Good point, James. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other new business? All right. Well, during the month of July, there'll be no committee meetings. And so the next time we gather will be the 21st of July at 7 p.m. And right now, I've asked the administration to see if we can actually meet in person, if not in the boardroom, then in the cafeteria, so we can start practicing how to do that in the event. I mean, we can't continue to do Zoom forever. Well, let's hope we don't have to. So that meeting will, the plan right now is to meet in person on the 21st of July, subject to change as time goes by. And if you have any comments about that, please don't hesitate to let me know. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn. It's been seconded. We are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Jim Van Dyke, could you pass the host duties back to me, please?
Good night.
Night.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
everyone.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Be safe.